Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back to Listen Closely. I am your host, Bobbi, and Merry Christmas. If you are listening to this, Christmas is happening or has happened, depending on when exactly you celebrate. But yeah, you should be listening to this on Christmas Day or maybe a couple days after. Maybe you're a little delayed, or maybe for some reason I get delayed, whatever have you. But Merry Christmas. It is still Christmas season, regardless of when you hear this. Like Halloween, we are going to be talking about the Christmas origin stories and basically how Christmas became Christmas. I already spoke on Krampus a little bit. I got into him. And like I said, just like Halloween, where I started to tell you, the origins of like the jack-o'-lantern and things that we do, I'm going to be doing the same thing, but Christmas version. And if you haven't already, follow me on all my social medias at HTT Listen Closely, where you can find tons more content, posts and videos and just all kinds of good stuff to go along with some of the stuff that I talk about. And before I go any further without introducing him, because I'm a terrible person, John is actually joining us this episode.
Hey, guys.
And he's mainly joining us this episode. Plus he loves me, but also he loves Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, he is the Clark Griswold of the family.
Mr. Christmas.
You are. This year we've been kind of crazy hectic and not really in the Christmas mood.
Yeah.
But the closer it comes, the more in the mood we kind of get.
Yeah. I was really upset. I didn't even get to put up Christmas lights this year, but that just means next year's going to be 10 times better.
But to be fair, we still have Halloween decorations up because I'm not, I'm slacking. This year's gone by really fast.
Absolutely.
So, I even said, well, you know what? We'll just put Christmas lights on the coffin outside. It's fine.
Yeah.
People do that, right?
Sure.
I guess so. we do it. It's fine.
That's, yeah.
People will probably pass by my house and they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's Bobbi with Listen Closely. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's get into this Christmas origin stuff.
Okay. What are we talking about? We're talking about the origins of Christmas.
Right. So I don't know if you listened to my Halloween special, but basically I said, Halloween, which actually is just like Christmas. It started out kind of like in the pagan origins.
Correct, yeah.
And then it kind of grew into a more Christian origin. And then here we are.
Yeah. Halloween, like you said in your Halloween episode, which I did watch, marks the end of summer solstice. So it's, it's all about, back then it started with pagan rituals and stuff of that nature. And
right.
And it can be the same thing could be said for Christmas.
Right, because it's actually kind of like the celebration of the winter solstice.
Correct.
Can you imagine all these solstices?
Yeah.
It's starting to make sense. But the winter solstice, which was celebrated called Yule, that was celebrated from December 21st through January.
Right.
And that's in recognition of the return of the sun.
And understand that the Norse people, they had festivals for everything.
Oh, yeah.
They had parties all the time.
It's kind of like New Orleans.
Right. And so they were always, even after a battle, they would go battle and apparent victory, they would come back and they would just have these great massive parties and they would bury their dead and they would hang out and have fun and drink and be merry because they won, at a cost, but they did win. So this is the winter solstice is no different than that. It is just, for them, it was one massive party, but it meant something, it's how they please their gods.
Right.
So,
and of course, being Christianity and we're going to have to bring it up, the Catholics,
right.
because they were the main church at the time. The Catholics then took over the pagan holiday because they converted those people over by, hey, they have this holiday, let's work in for us in our favor.
Right. Basically, hey, we don't like the way they celebrate this holiday, so we're going to take it over and we're going to make it all about things other than their gods.
Right. And it was actually Pope Julius I who chose December 25th as the first, Christmas celebration, right. Whatever have you at the time. Because, the Bible, it doesn't actually mention the actual date of Jesus Christ's birth.
So in reading, it actually says that they chose that date. The church chose a date in an effort to adopt and absorb one of their festivals called Saturnalia, which, like I said, they have massive festivals. So that was one that they were like, okay, well, this festival is on this day. Let's change that festival and make it something involving, Christianity, the church.
Yeah. So, and they figured, hey, let's go ahead and kind of bring Jesus in with this, and let's get them to understand and maybe accept a little bit better by, mixing it in with some of their stuff. So it was actually first called the Feast of Nativity.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah, it makes it complete sense when you actually think about it. So now that we kind of got like a basic of how Christmas became like Christmas. I mean, at the time it wasn't Christmas exactly. We're still not there yet.
Right.
But it's the Feast of Nativity. Like, it's starting to get into the more 18th, 19th century to early 17th century. And things start to kind of shake up again. Christmas actually was not really Christmas. I mean, at the time, people were in poverty. People were, they were just struggling really bad.
Right.
I mean, you had the wars at the time, just a lot going on to where basically everybody just couldn't deal with it. So they had to basically try and change it, reinvent it, make it a more happier, good occasion. So basically what happened is in the early 17th century, with the religious reforms and changes, that they basically changed the way Christmas was celebrated in Europe. Again, this is still Europe time. We're not really in America right now.
Right.
But in 1645, Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan forces that took over England vowed to get rid of Christmas. And by popular demand, Charles II was restored to the throne, and with him came the return of the popular holiday. So basically, they're like, you know what, let's get rid of Christmas. We don't want to do it because it is a Catholic holiday, turned Catholic holiday. So we just, as a Puritan, I want to get rid of it. And then lo and behold, it came back.
Right. And you have to understand at that point in history, that was Martin Luther. That was the 95 Thesis that he pinned on the door. But that was a Catholic church that was very misguided. The paying for your sins and stuff like that. So these Puritan forces were like, hey, we don't like this anymore. We're not going to bow over to this. And so when they looked at that holiday in Christmas as a whole, they're like, this is not a definite holiday. It's a Catholic holiday, so we don't want to do it. And so they canceled it until, like you said, Charles II came back into power, and then it was, renewed. But
right. And then we go back to, finally we're starting to get into America, and America is becoming its own thing. We become our own country, independence and stuff. And because of that, and because of they were trying to get away from religious persecution,
correct,
they decided, hey, we're going to actually get rid of some of these English customs, which actually included Christmas.
Yeah, because they were in the same sentence. They were also Puritans. Right. So they, I read a thing that said they were actually more Puritan than Cromwell himself. So they did not want the holiday in America.
Right. So, in fact, actually, Christmas wasn't declared a federal holiday until June 26th, 1870.
That's crazy. That's after the Civil War.
Right.
We fought so many wars and became, a young, burling country, and we're not celebrating Christmas. You would think that everybody was doing Christmas at that time, and they just weren't. It wasn't a holiday. There might have been some that were celebrating it, but it wasn't a national holiday.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, again, because of all the periods of conflict and turmoil, you got class conflicts now.
Right.
With, the middle class, lower class, upper class, and we still see that today. So it's not anything new. But then you got, gangs rioting and, just different people just going crazy, especially around the Christmas season, because we all know, even this, in this day and time, that the Christmas season is a stressful time. I mean, you just think about, I've got to buy this and this and this and this for that person. It's a stressful time.
Right.
Christmas wasn't the same again. Again, we went through another basically Christmas riot. So we had to basically change the way Christmas is celebrated again, and especially in America.
Right. So this is the, third or fourth time that Christmas has changed to meet the ideas of the people that are surrounding it.
It got reinvented quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Because basically, if I wasn't rich, I couldn't celebrate.
Absolutely. Kind of like in the old English days when you had serfs and manors, the higher ups were the ones that were celebrating in the houses, while the serfs were, the laborers and stuff. So they weren't celebrating.
Right, which brings us to actually one of the most famous things about Christmas, which is A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
I mean, that literally describes what that is about.
Absolutely.
Guy was a penny pincher.
And that's, not only is it my second favorite Christmas movie of all time, but it tells such a riveting story about, the way that the rich treated the poorer people.
Right.
And, like that's exactly what we're talking about. Ebenezer Scrooge. I remember one time in the book where he talks about, can he have one lump of coal for the fire? And he tells him, he's like, it's coming out of your paycheck. Like that's how they treated him. But it definitely was classist, and it was not what we celebrate as Christmas today.
Yep, but that A Christmas Carol did show us that the true importance is of charity and goodwill towards all humankind, and that it's more of a family holiday.
Correct.
So, at the end, it doesn't matter how much money you have as long as you were with your family and friends and loved ones.
Right.
So that really changed the tone of Christmas again. That right there, Charles Dickens, he created like basically the Christmas that we know.
Right.
And this is actually a trick question for John because I already know his answer. But who do you think invented the Santa Claus that we know today?
Okay, so we talked about this before the show, and I always thought that it was Coca-Cola. But you have corrected me on that, so I'm going to let you entertain them with that answer.
Yes, so spoiler alert, it was not Coca-Cola, although they have a very good campaign and, that classic Santa Claus image. It was not Coca-Cola. So the legend of Santa Claus can be traced back to a monk named St. Nicholas, who was born in Turkey around 280 AD. St. Nicholas gave away all of his inherited wealth and traveled the countryside, helping the poor and sick, becoming known as the proctor of children and sailors. St. Nicholas first entered American popular culture in the late 18th century in New York City when the Dutch families gathered to honor the anniversary of the death of St. Nicholas.
Yeah.
And basically, we abbreviated his name and called him Santa Claus.
Right. And some of I don't know where I've heard that from, but the Sinister Claus, I don't know where that's from, but that's what they call it. That was one of the names for St. Nicholas.
I think it was Dutch.
Yeah, it was Dutch, yeah. So that's pretty cool. I like that.
Which we already kind of talked about him a little bit because we talked about his counterpart, which was Krampus.
Right.
So he was the good version,
Correct.
St. Nicholas. And in 1822, the Episcopal minister Clement Clark Moore wrote a Christmas poem called An Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas, which more popularly known today by its first line, "'Twas the night before Christmas." Exactly.
Yeah.
The poem depicted Santa Claus as a jolly man who flies from home to home on a sled driven by reindeer to deliver toys. So again, now we're starting to get more into the Santa Claus and Christmas we know.
Right.
The iconic version of Santa Claus as a jolly man in red with a white beard and a sack of toys was immortalized in 1881, not by Coca-Cola, but when a political cartoonist, Thomas Nast, drew on Moore's poem to create the image of Old Saint Nick we know today.
Wow, that's cool.
So not Coca-Cola. Although I don't know when that Coca-Cola ad started. It had to be in
it was
20s?
I want to say it was the 20s.
I thought so because it looks more in the 20s.
So back in the day, I don't know if you remember this, but they used to make plates, and the plates, Coca-Cola came out with one each year, and it was always a depiction of Santa Claus doing something on the plate. And if you have all of those plates, right now, you're pretty rich because those plates are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So apparently it is not a outlandish question to ask because I literally just Googled Coca-Cola Santa, and the first thing that popped up was Coca-Cola Company's website.
Yeah.
And the question was, did Coca-Cola create Santa? They have an actual page for this.
People ask them all the time, I'm sure.
And it says Coca-Cola did not create the legend of Santa Claus, but Coca-Cola advertising did play a big role in the shaping of the jolly character we know today. So it says in 1931, Coca-Cola commissioned illustrator Haddon Sundblom, I believe is his name, to paint Santa for Christmas advertisements. And he also drew upon that 1822 poem.
Well, see, there you go.
"'Twas the Night Before Christmas" that we know. And that's how he got that picture. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, yes and no. Like, that poem, if that poem weren't there, we would not know what Santa Claus looks like. We wouldn't have the bearded red guy.
Right.
So, there you go. Coca-Cola did it. They have a actual page for it that says, no, we didn't do it. Sorry. But they did definitely help influence it.
Right.
I know during Halloween, I gave the origins of the jack-o'-lantern, which was like, one of the main things that you think Halloween jack-o'-lantern. So what do you think the Christmas tree origin is?
So I feel like I used to know this. That I don't know. What is it?
So the use of evergreen trees, wreaths, and garland often symbolize eternal life, and it was actually a custom of ancient Egyptians, Chinese, and Hebrews. The tree worship was common among the pagan Europeans and survived their conversion to Christianity. Again, that's where we saw, them trying to convert. So from paganism to Christianity, which is really more Catholicism,
right,
in the Scandinavian areas. And yeah, they decorated their barns and houses and stuff with the evergreens to scare away the devil, and setting up the tree for the birds basically during Christmas time.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if you think about it, Yule logs, Yule trees.
Yule trees, yeah.
Makes sense. The modern Christmas tree that we know, however, originated in Western Germany. The main prop of a popular medieval play about Adam and Eve was a paradise tree, which was a fir tree hung with apples that represented the Garden of Eden. The Germans set up a paradise tree in their homes on December 24th, the religious feast day of Adam and Eve. They hung wafers on it, which symbolizes the Eucharistic host. And in later traditions, the wafers were replaced by cookies in various shapes, then candles, which were symbolic of Christ as the light of the world. And yeah, so I mean, that basically, so it, again, like everything else, I mean, just like the jack-o'-lantern got converted and changed, and, certain parts did certain things.
Right.
We saw the Scandinavians and the Germans having basically like a tree type thing up for their things, and the pagans, and we were just like, hey, we're going to take that, we're going to kind of reinvent it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just seems to be most of our holidays seem to be us reinventing other people's holidays.
That's it. Do we actually have any holidays that we made up ourselves?
Yes, actually we do.
Okay.
I mean, don't quote me on this.
July 4th, obviously.
Well, no, but don't quote me on this. But Mother's Day was invented by a woman in America.
Yeah, and I also believe that Valentine's Day was made by the Hallmark Corporation. I'll have to check that, but I'm pretty sure it is.
I don't think originally. But again, you also thought Coca-Cola
I guess
Christmas.
so. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. But anyways.
So there we go. Now we have the origin of the Christmas tree, which is one of the main things about Christmas that I think of. Like when you think Christmas, you think Santa Claus, Christmas tree, and probably Rudolph. But actually, now that I mentioned Rudolph, do you know anything about him? The most famous reindeer of all?
I mean, I know that he has a red nose and he guided Santa's sleigh on a very cold, stormy winter's night.
Well, you might also now know that he was the product of Robert L. May's imagination in 1939. The copywriter wrote a poem about the reindeer to help lure customers into the Montgomery Ward department store. So, of course, it was about making more money.
Of course.
I mean, it got really commercialized. Let's be honest. Christmas is just a very commercialized, just like Halloween now, it's very commercialized.
Right.
I mean, even Krampus, I talked about him. He's getting more commercialized.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way of the world.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just everything now these days.
Right. But I mean, some people are still keeping the older traditions alive. And, people, I mean, including me, because I'm doing this episode, we try to tell you of, why we do the things we do, where things came from. Because you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that I learned something about Christmas that I did not know. I was actually looking at an article, and because everybody and their mom has a manger scene in their house, right? Or outside, or you see it in front of your church, or, whatever it is. I never understood why. I just realized that they don't put the baby in the manger until Christmas Day.
So and I know we talked about this, but I don't know if it's just Catholics or if it's everybody that does this. I know Catholics do it.
Right.
Full disclosure, I'm Catholic, if you haven't guessed already. So I am the Catholic of the bunch. And we've always done it this way, but I didn't know like other people didn't, or at least John didn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We've always had our baby in the manger at all times.
Right. So I don't know if it's like a Catholic Protestant thing or if it's just certain churches that don't do it. I don't know. But yeah, we do not put out baby Jesus because he hasn't been born yet.
Right. And it makes sense. You know, I just never thought of it. And when I seen that article about it, I was like, man, you know what? That makes a ton of sense. And I think I'm going to start doing that with our manger scene now.
Yeah. And some people actually don't even put out the wise men yet.
Yeah. Because it doesn't make sense for them to be there.
Yeah, so what they'll do is they'll put out Mary and Joseph, and that's it. And like the little animals.
And the donkey and the sheep.
And that's it. And then, you know, Christmas, when we do midnight mass, you know, after mass, we go and we put out baby Jesus because he's now born.
Right.
And then the wise men are still not there because we actually have another holiday.
Yeah.
We have the Three Kings Day.
Or, and I can pronounce it though, Dia de los Reyes.
Right. Which is where we see the king cake come from. And that's when the three kings show up and they present their gifts to the baby, to the newborn king. And that's actually well, at least in Hispanic culture, some families do Christmas and then they also do Three Kings Day.
Right.
While others will only do Three Kings Day.
Right.
Like you'll get like small little like candies and stuff for Christmas.
Yeah.
Because the big day is Three Kings Day.
And I'll have to talk her into doing an episode because that whole celebration is really cool. But
I mean, it falls on a Thursday, but I'm sure I can, you know, stretch it to the 8th.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that far away. But yeah, that's just real quickly some things about Christmas. Like I said, I did this for Halloween. I actually skipped Thanksgiving, so I do apologize about that one because I probably should have said some stuff about where Thanksgiving came from.
Yeah.
But, you know, these bigger holidays have more history on them.
Right.
So I just wanted to real quickly give you just to give you a little history on where things came from, why we do the things we do. In case you're not in the Christmas spirit, this might get you in the Christmas spirit. Or if you're even over it, you're listening to this like after Christmas. I mean, it gives you some context.
Right.
So is there anything you want to add to the Christmas episode?
Nope. I just hope that everybody has a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year.
All right. And if you can only do one thing, what should you do, John?
Listen closely.
See you next year, my lovelies.